Today we're going to make a video on how to hook up an amplifier in a vehicle on a 12 volt negative ground DC system. Okay, we're making this video for a fella named Super 60 so he can see how we hooked our amplifier up. I hooked mine up rather. And this video is being made for CBRT Global Radio website. I want to shout out to all the guys. Bozo the owner, Bombero, Bush Hog, Youngblood, Jet Center, my buddy Jet Setter, Marv, just all the guys at CBRT. It's a global radio website. They have all the information on radio communications, old radios, new radios, hooking them up, antennas, coax, wires, anything that you may need to know about radios, they have it. So anyway, we hooked up our linear amplifier. It's a radio communications amplifier. It's similar to a thump thump boom boom amplifier for your music. Okay, so I hooked up a 50 amp system. It's rated, some of the components are rated for 50 amps. I only need 25 amps, so I have double the power that I need. That's the standard that you need, is double. You don't want to run your electrical system full tilt and just be crushing it all the time. So anyway, let's get started here, folks, because there's a bit of information to go through. First of all, you can see I have a brand new battery, 9 of 23. That's September 2023. It's a brand new fresh battery, and it's 1,000 cranking amps at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. This vehicle is a 6-cylinder. As you can see, it's my Jeep 4-wheeler. I go in the mud with it, and it only requires 650 cranking amps. But I put 1,000 to have extra juice and extra live time. It'll crank the vehicle longer. Okay. Now, it's an upgraded battery, and you can see the red wire here connected to the red, the black wire to ground connected to the black. Okay, those are the main two power wires for my amplifier. Alright, now when you look under the hood, you really don't see a whole lot of fancy stuff, capacitors and all of that, showing you, you know, that you have something hooked up. It kind of looks similar to what the dealer would do. So let's get into it. Everything we did is redundant. I say we, but me. Okay, you see the connector here. That copper connector hooked to the battery, hooked to an 10 gauge wire rather. Okay, this copper connector was crimped, and it was soldered, and we put a solder bulb on the bottom of it. So we held the connector up and let solder drip down into the connector to make a bulb in the bottom. That way, that bulb is too big to escape past the crimp. So it's crimped, one redundancy. It's soldered, that's 2 redundancies. It has a bulb in the bottom of it, that's 3 redundancies. And it's got the heat shrink on it. As you can see, that black heat shrink line. They both have black heat shrink tubing. Okay, see the fuse holder? It has heat shrink on it. Okay, that's marine grade heat shrink. The difference between marine grade and regular grade is marine grade emits a sealant when you heat it. Okay, so when you heat it up to shrink it, and I don't know if this camera can see it, it shrinks it real well. Okay, nice and tight. It also shrinks it, but marine grade also seals it. Similar to silicone, but it's not silicone. So this connector here has 5 redundant qualities about it to keep it from corroding, to keep it from coming loose. Okay, 1, it's crimped. 2, it's soldered. 3, it has a solder bulb. 4, it's shrink tubed. And 5, it was shrink tubing with the sealant in it. So ain't no water, nothing going to get on there. And marine grade shrink tubing is rated for salt water. Okay, so nothing's going to get in there. They know you might go to the ocean. and do it that way. Okay, so we know what that is. Those connectors are super tight, as you can see. They're not going to move. They're connected straight to the battery. Now, you see a very short wire here running to my fuse holder. If you notice, the fuse holder is mounted to plastic, and it's very convenient for this fuse holder, this vehicle, because the plastic is right here. You can mount it to metal because it has independent screws, but it's mounted to plastic, which is just that much safer. Okay, you see this short piece of wire. Your initial wire going to your fuse holder has to be very short. That way, if the fuse blows here, the whole rest of the wire that comes out here and goes down here and goes down into the cabin of the vehicle, all that wire is dead. If the fuse holder was inside the cabin and it blew, this whole length of wire that was hooked to the battery would still be live. So you always put your fuse holder as close to the battery as possible. Okay, very short wire going to the fuse holder. Now, this is a 100 amp fuse holder. It can handle doing 100 amps. You see it has the large fuse. It's the good heavy duty fuses. And this green one, fuses are rated by color. This green one is a 30 amp fuse. Okay, so my equipment runs approximately 25 amps. So you just give it a little bit more amps. You never oversize your fuse. If you put a 100 amp fuse in there, by the time that 100 amp fuse is going to blow, it's going to burn up your box, burn up your amplifier, burn up your thump amplifier. Something's going to burn. Okay, so if you need 25 amps, put a 30 amp fuse. If you need 50 amps, you put a 60 amp fuse. You never severely oversize your fuse for your system. You make it very close, and I put the cap on there, and it shows you right there 30 amps. I know you can't see it. Okay, this fuse holder is what you call a clocked fuse holder. Okay, it has a clock position fuse holder, and the wire, that means that the wire has to go in a certain position for the fuse connector to make contact. Now let me explain this. This is a set screw to go into the wire, connect to the wire, and that's the set screw on the other side. Comes in here, goes through the fuse, comes out here. This is fine stranded wire. Fine stranded has less loss because wire has resistance in it. And there's charts over resistance, over diameter, over distance, how long your wire is. Okay, so inside this fuse holder, there's a tube, or what they call a ferrule. Okay, and you take your wire and you stick it in the ferrule. Now, if you smash something, it's going to spread out. Okay, that's the nature of the world. If you smash an orange, it's going to split and smash and spread out. If you smash a grape, it's going to spread that grape out. Okay, the wire goes inside of a ferrule, which is a little tube. Okay, and that tube keeps the wire from spreading out when it gets in there, so it causes that set screw to make as much contact to as much of that wire as possible. Okay, if it's spread out a bunch, then you'd be making contact with less of the wire, and you're going to have lots of resistance there, and you're going to have a lot of loss. Okay, so they put a tube in there. There's a removable tube. Now, that tube has a hole in it, and this is a 12 o'clock clocked fuse holder. Okay, so you stick the wire in the tube to keep it from spreading out, and the tube has a hole in it, and you have to set the tube. In this case, again, you see there, the screws are on top. The tube has a hole in it, the ferrule has a hole in it, so you set it just in the right position to allow that screw to go down through that hole, keeps the wire from spreading out in there. It's contained inside that tube, and then this set screw goes through the hole to make contact with the wire. Okay, very good. So we understand that. Now, that's a redundant type of fuse holder. Okay, fine stranded wire. This is high quality wire. I didn't buy any cheap stuff. All this stuff cost me somewhere around $100, no more than that. Okay, marine grade shrink tubing on it, as you can see. Clock position fuse holder. On the other side, if you can see, it has wire loom. See that? And this is for the hot wire, because the hot wire is what can create your problems. Ground can touch ground. It's not a big deal. If your hot touches ground, it's going to be problems. So on the other side of the fuse holder, we put it inside this wire ferrule right here, the wire loom. Okay, it's double redundancy with double zip straps, single zip straps on the ground, because again, that's not as important. Double zip straps on the wire loom, and it runs down under my overflow container. And here's the wire loom, and it runs down here. Here's the wire loom, and we have zip straps all over the place, and it goes into a grommet that I hope you can see. Okay, this grommet right here, we drilled a hole in the firewall. You can't hardly see it that good, but it's down there. We drilled a hole in the firewall and put this rubber grommet in there, okay, so that the wire can go through it. Right here's the rubber grommet. I wish I had a flashlight. The wire can go through it, and it doesn't make a chance in letting it touch the ground. Okay, it's not going to touch ground. So let me see if I can turn my flashlight on here on my phone. I really don't know how to do it. Jeez. No, I don't know how to turn the flashlight on my phone. But anyway, clock, store, internet, messages, phone, Samsung, Spotify network, unlock settings. I don't see how to turn the flashlight on my phone. I don't use that. But anyway, there is a rubber grommet down there, right here where my finger is. And the wire loom runs right up to the grommet, right down there, all the way up to the grommet, and goes through the firewall. Okay, if you can see that grommet down there, the grommet is right there. Okay, with that red wire where the wires are going through. I think this camera can see pretty good at night. Okay, here's the wire loom right here going up to the grommet. The grommet is the right size for the hole. We use a step bit to drill a hole, and it's also the right thickness for the firewall, because there's 2 or 3 layers of sheet metal in there that's fairly heavy. Okay, and it also has the right inside diameter to hold 2 pieces of 10 gauge wire and 2 pieces of 16 gauge wire. Okay, so all the wires run down to the grommet, and the grommet is the proper one, so it's not going to come out. But for extra safety, we siliconed the grommet to the body of the vehicle through the firewall on the inside and the outside. So it's not going to come out, but we glued it on both sides, essentially with silicone, to make it tight. Okay, now you see this blue wire here? It goes to the frame, or to the body of the vehicle. That little bitty skinny blue wire. And you see these blue wires here. Okay, and one goes over to this side, and it's going to the body of the vehicle. That's nice and tight. Okay, I have a ground wire here on the driver's side, and another ground wire here on the passenger side. Okay, those are extra grounds which will help you talk DX when you're dealing with radio communications. Okay, now everything is redundant. The positive wire is inside that wire loom. It's quality wire, so it would have to melt the insulation around the wire, then melt its way through the loom. Here's the loom right here, before it could make contact with ground. And you can see there we have zip straps, but you can't really tell. You know, it's not something obvious. We kind of tried to hide it, I did, to keep you from noticing that there's some kind of electronics in the vehicle that somebody might want to steal. So anyway, everything is redundant. Again, this has 5 redundancies to keep that from coming loose. 5 redundancies here, 3 redundancies here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's everything is tight. All the connections are tight. You see, that's locked down. It won't move. It has to be tight. When you're dealing with amplifiers, whether it's thump thump boom boom radio or radio communications or a winch, winches on tow trucks and things use a lot of power. You're winching your boat up there. Those winches draw a lot of amperage. So you have to have all your connections tight. You can't just twist tie the wires and twist them together and tape them and good, all good. It's going to be so much loss at that connector where you twisted it, it's just going to wreak havoc on you. So there you go, and basically the only thing you can see is the wire, and we're going to put the loom back on it when we're done here. And the top quality clocked fuse holder, 12 o'clock position fuse holder, wire loom, everything is, it almost looks like it was done by the factory. Extra grounds, ground over there. So right side of vehicles grounded the body, left side of vehicles grounded the body. So let's go inside. Okay, this setup was rated for 50 amps. Again, I need about 25 amps. Okay, but I did 50 amps because that's what you want. You want to be able to have double the power that you need. Added redundancies. Okay, now here's the red and the black coming off the battery, and it's on a quick disconnect because I disconnect my equipment and take it in the house with me when I'm not talking, so nobody steals it. The quick disconnects have a cover on it, as you can see. Okay, one is red with black and red, red and black, and the 2 grounds extra are on a gray connector. Okay, color of the wire is 1 redundancy. Blue wires, red and black. Wire size is another redundancy. The color of the connector is another redundancy. Okay, now I want to show you these connectors. Okay, these are what you call gender-free connectors. I don't know if you can see it. It says positive there, negative there. Okay, look at these connectors. They're both the same. They're exactly the same. There is no male, there is no female. It's gender-free. Okay, one connector does anything you need it to do. It'll connect to it only one way. And China did that because that way they only have to have one machine that makes it. And that one machine just spits them out. You don't have to have a male machine and a female machine to make either one. Okay, so these are gender-free connectors. They're both the same on both sides, as you can see. But when you turn one over and put the other one to it, positive, positive, negative, negative. Okay, so everything is redundant. The new types of connectors, those connectors have only, that type of connector has only been out a few years, but they're really nice connectors. Now, these connectors, this wire, this 10 gauge wire can handle probably 80 amps. It's fine stranded wire for low loss, but the connector is rated for 50 amps, and it's also rated for 10,000 operations. So you can disconnect and connect this quick disconnector 10,000 times before it's going to fail. And I would imagine if you did it 10,001 times, then it's going to fail on you. They know exactly how many times you're going to be able to do it, but 10,000 times would probably last you 28 years if you did it every day. So it's pretty reliable, long-lasting connector. Now, you got your two connectors coming from through the firewall from under the hood. I showed you your blue ground wires, your hot, your red, and your black coming right off the battery. Okay, we're going to unhook the face of the connector to protect that. Unhook the face of that. Now, on my linear, here's my little bitty feller. Just a little bitty linear. And I'm going to show you how to hook it up. Okay, on the linear, you see the red and the black wires, okay, which are the factory wires from the linear. This linear, the way they made it, it doesn't have a aluminum sheet metal cover over it. It's all basically heat sink. As you can see, the whole linear is a heat sink. All right, and they put a fan on there. So the best place to mount the extra grounds were directly to the fan. Okay, so got the two grounds. I showed you under the hood, right to left, or driver side, passenger side. Okay, now, on the back of the linear, you have your gray plug for the grounds with the blue wires, just like that. And you have your red and black wires for your power coming off the battery. So everything goes together. If you hook the red and black wires to the gray connector, I mean, that's just crazy. Linear radio communication linear amplifiers aren't for dummies. Okay, you're not supposed to be a dummy and try to hook one of these up, operate it, because you will blow it up. Okay, so this is a small linear, Chinese linear. It's a BJ 300 plus, and it does 300 watts. Okay, and I see it's on, so I turn it off. Now, I'm going to show you how to hook your linear up each time when you disconnect it. Okay, the most important thing to hook the linear up is the antenna. That way, if something by chance is squeezing the microphone, or you're sitting on the mic and it's keying up the radio, quit your sniveling, dude. Keying up the radio. That's my dog. He beautiful belly baby. Say hi. Hi, bozo. I'm not a duck, but I love you anyway. The first thing you want to do is hook it up to the antenna. Okay, so we do have a meter hooked up to this, just to let you see, and the antenna has to hook up directly to the meter. Okay, so I have the antenna hooked to the linear, or the meter hooked to the linear, and this is for the antenna. So if I didn't have a meter, it would be going straight to the radio or to the amplifier. But the first thing I'm going to do before I even put power to it is hook up the antenna. That way, if it does accidentally key up, it'll have an antenna to save its life. Okay, so I just hooked up the antenna. Now the antenna's hooked up, but I haven't even plugged it in yet. Okay, our plugs aren't plugged in yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I got wires all over the place here, but the first thing I'm going to do is hook up the extra grounds. That's the next step. The non-gender connectors. So hook those up, snap that together. There. Now the ground is hooked up. Blue to blue, blue wires to blue wires. You saw them under the hood, to the right side, to the left side. And the ground blue wires also go to the body of the linear. Okay, the black and red come off the radio, black and red, and with the non-gender connectors, once you hook it up and it's turned off, once you hook it up to your connector, Snap that together.